Hello YouTubers. I want to talk to you. This is a little bit off script of what I usually do, but there's something that just gets under my skin, and I don't want you guys to be taken advantage of like so many other people have been or had bought this thing, this party speaker, which had I had seen it, if I had seen it, probably would have tried to talk him out of it. Rechargeable, true Bluetooth, dual 10-inch speakers. It's called a party speaker. Okay. Party goers not included, although it doesn't say that. And it's got several inputs and stuff. But here's the thing. See, right here, it says 5,400 watts, PMPO. You can take to the beach or anything. Bluetooth sounds great, you know. He was looking for a wireless speaker system, and that's fine. But here's the problem I have with it. Their power rating, okay? It says 5,400 watt PMPO. Now, what the hell is that? PMPO stands for Peak Music Power Output, and it's a completely useless, meaningless rating, and I'll explain why. You see it on a lot of cheap stereo items. They seem really low priced, and they boast these ridiculous output levels. Okay, the sound, of course, is in a sinusoidal wave. Say that's 1,000 hertz, okay, which is probably what they test it with, because 1,000 cycles per second, or 1,000 hertz, is one of the easiest frequencies for an amplifier to reproduce. It's just a single frequency, and it's in a nice clean sine wave. So it's real easy to produce it. Most amplifiers will produce more in that, at that frequency than any other frequency. But the PMPO, where that comes in, is you got the, well, when I was in electronics school, they called it the intelligence signal, which, considering the pop music that they put out now, I wouldn't call it intelligence signal. But anyway, what they're referring to is a momentary high peak that's probably for about either a microsecond or a millisecond. It'll be way up here somewhere. And you're not even going to hear it. It's not long enough to even hear. And in addition, the distortion is some ridiculous amount, like 10–20% or something, which is in an amplifier is completely unlistenable. Anything above 1%, most people with any kind of decent ears at all can detect 1% distortion, a little bit. Anything more than that, it goes downhill rapidly, and 10–20% is total chaos. What you want to look for is the industry standard. For instance, this is one of my amplifiers. Okay, this uses the industry standard for rating. Okay, amplifier power output. This is the rating you want to read. RMS, no peak crap. Okay, like my amp, 200 watts continuous average per channel at 8 ohms, 20 to 20,000 hertz, both channels driven, and the distortion is less than 0.1% at any level up to 200 watts RMS per channel into 8 ohms. And then like here they've got power clipping, single channel, 2,500 hertz, less than 1% distortion, 235 watts into 8 ohms. That's less than 1% distortion, which is clean power. This PMPO doesn't even make any sense. It's completely useless. You might as well not have any ratings at all. And in fact, I looked on the paperwork that came with that thing, and there's no RMS rating on it. More than likely, considering how lightweight it is and everything, it probably might be maybe 10 watts per channel, if that. A clean power, 10, no more than 20. I'm thinking probably 10. More than likely. What was I going to write up here? For one thing, in order to put out 5,000 watts, it would have to have an enormous bank of transistors and heat sinks to dissipate the heat, because a lot of your power is lost in heat on any amplifier. And so, I mean, the thing would be huge, huge, or as President Trump said, huge. Anyway, it would be gigantic, not this lightweight, portable item that it is. I've seen it on other stuff too. A friend of mine has a catalog that he gets, and there's some receiver in there that boasts 1,000 watts PMPO per channel, and they don't give you any RMS ratings, so you know it's junk. If you see a power rating that says PMPO, don't walk away or run. Don't even buy it, because it's crap. If they can't give you an honest RMS rating, then it's junk. It's not worth buying. The transistor, I'll get too technical here, but transistor conduction curve looks something like this. Because a transistor acts like a switch, but it's not on off. They can be used that way, but usually it's more on, or less on, and it's driven by, they put a certain voltage in there, and it biases it. Two people back in 1956 or something discovered that taking a pure crystalline structure such as silicone or germanium and doping it with something else, they could create a semiconductor, something that the conduction could be controlled by putting a voltage on it. The more voltage you put on it, the more it would conduct, the harder it would conduct. And this is, for audio amplification, you want it in this area. That's what they call the linear conduction curve, where you'll get the least distortion. You don't want it down here where it's barely biased on, or up here where it's overdriven. Now, they use them in those applications, for modulation, demodulation, heterodyning. There are uses for transistors in the upper part of the conduction curve, where you want to generate square waves, you want to generate harmonics and distortion. But that's a lot of crap I'm not going to get into. You know, your circuit board with transistors and so on. And then you got your power supply, a big transformer. Sometimes there's a transformer for each channel. The point is, this is a transistor, let's call it Q1, represents amplification, okay, and ground, you know, have to have a swamping resistor to prevent thermal runaway, that goes to ground. Okay, and then this is the base. This is the emitter. And that's the collector. This goes to your speaker. Okay, now tied to this is V sub CC, which is your power supply. Okay. And on the base is your music signal. I would say intelligence signal, but modern pop music just doesn't cut it for that. Nothing really intelligent about it. Okay, so signal comes in there. Actually, you got positive and negative alternations. Okay. And this conducts. This will have a little bit of bias on it. It's going to have, if it's germanium, it's going to have like 0.3 volts, something like that. Silicone is 0.7. I forgot the exact amount. It's been, let's see, almost 40 years since I was in electronics school, so. Anyway, what's happening when you get the big output in over here, what you're doing is you are swinging your power supply voltage at an audio rate. So this will usually be coupled with a capacitor or something. It won't be directly coupled. There has to be a capacitor or some kind of a choke circuit or something. Otherwise, it would just be straight to the speaker, and you'd have voltage. You'd have DC voltage on the speaker, which you don't want. A capacitor prevents that. But anyway, so say you got, if it's a big amp like 200 watts per channel, probably going to be like 80 volts. And actually, in an actual circuit, you probably have a Darlington configuration, which would be a couple transistors together, and maybe a push-pull as well. You have them opposite ways. One pushes and one pulls, and you double your power output. But anyway, this is just a basic circuit. Base, emitter, and collector, and on a MOSFET or JFET, it's called gate, source, and drain instead. Same thing. So, say you got 80 volts sitting here. Depending on how loud you turn your volume knob up, it's going to have a wiper arm on it. This is your volume knob, and it'll move along that resistor. I don't know how well you can see this. What they call a wiper arm adjusts the volume, which changes this, lower or higher, which changes this, lower or higher. The signal just doesn't just go in and just somehow get bigger. It's what happens is you are using the power supply. That's what you're listening to at your speaker, is your power supply at an audio rate. The reason I bring this up is because think of how big the power supply would have to be to put out 5,000 watts over here. It doesn't even compute. It would have to be probably about the size of a refrigerator, I'd imagine. So that's why the PMPO is such an unrealistic rate. Anyway, I didn't want to get into too much detail because, I mean, there's a lot to electronics. Depends on how deep you want to go. But that's just the basic amplifier circuit. It doesn't even have all the components. It's solid state, by the way. Tubes look different. And the point is, I'm trying to sell a bill of goods. And he's going to take it back, actually, because he's disappointed with it. It turns out it sounds tinny, doesn't have that much output. 5,400 watts output would be extreme. My amplifier I'm using right now, I just read you the ratings on it, and it'll get so loud in here you can't stand it. The reason I have such a powerful amplifier is because I wanted to handle the musical peaks cleanly. Because audio is logarithmic. In other words, say you're listening to something at, say, 85 decibels, and you got a music peak that's 10 decibels higher, or 95. Well, that doesn't require a little bit more power. That actually requires 10 times the power. A 10 decibel increase in audio will require a 10-fold increase in amplifier output. So if your amplifier at 85 decibels is putting out, say, 1 watt, you'll have to put out 10 watts to hit 95. And to hit 105, 100 watts. And 115, 1,000 watts, which mine would never reach, unless you had a very efficient speaker. Also, when they test amplifiers, they do it under ideal conditions. They just use a resistive load, not an inductive load like a speaker usually is. The speaker is voice coil, and that's an inductor. Well, what they do in the laboratory is they'll hook up a resistive load to it, which is an ideal load. It doesn't strain the amplifier, it's really easy on it. It's all favorable conditions. Kind of like back when they first started doing EPA fuel economy ratings on cars. They were done under ideal conditions. I think they were done on a chassis dynamometer or something. They didn't even actually take it on a road trip, you know. So the numbers were kind of meaningless. They weren't realistic. And that's the same thing with this PMPO. So if you see an outlandish power rating that seems too good to be true, more than likely it is too good to be true. I just wanted to pass that along to you. And anyway, thanks for watching. And if you want to hear more content like this about audio or electronics, let me know. I mean, normally I cover hunting and fishing and a little bit of politics. But if you want some of that, I can come up with more videos about that stuff too. I mean, I was a master technician, ICBM master technician for the Air Force for a number of years. And even though it's been a while, I remember most of what I learned. So just let me know in the comments. You can also let me know if you don't want anything that's off my normal routine as well. For Patreons, when I put a video on Patreon, there's a box that says charge for this video, something like that. And for videos that are way off script, I don't charge my Patreons. Because they could get out of it. Even if I did, they could always request the money back. But I usually don't charge for videos that are off of what I normally put out, because there's a reason they subscribe to my channel, and it's usually most of it's based on hunting and 10 gauges and stuff like that. So anyway, let me know what you think, and again, thanks for watching.